And excited, right? Get it? So, all right. So a couple of things I want to chat with you about. So in your notes, put class topics. And first thing is that I just want to, I have made that this requirement, but I'm actually going to reinforce it now, hopefully a little bit, is that from now on, all print screens have to include, right, your name. So wherever you take the print screen, whether it be in Code Academy, and I'll have this for both, I'll come back to that in a second, but it has to have your account name and preferably your picture, because on my IT lab you don't get a picture, you just have your name, right? So from now on, if I don't see your name in the print screens, it's 5 points off. So make sure you include that. And anybody want to know why? Why do you think I include that as a requirement? Come on, you know why, right? To make sure it's uniquely yours. Not that any of you would, right? But sometimes, and by the way, statistics show, based on the number in here, some of you have cheated in your lives. I'm just saying, and I'm not pointing at anybody. And, you know, again, I'm just trying to make it not so easy to do it. And the truth is, with a class like this, you're really cheating yourself if you do, because it's skill-based for most of this class. So if you're doing that, not cool. So in other words, here's what I want. I want it for both the Code Academy and the My IT Lab from now on. And also just a word about the My IT Lab, and I've noticed this, is that, right, when you do the first print screen, let's say for Excel, right, and then you do the next print screen for Chapter 2, well, it includes already the 1-for-1, so you can just replace every time until you get to the 4, right? So you could end up with one print screen for all 4 chapters. Does that make sense? Yeah? So it just makes it a little more organized. Anybody make sense? Question about that? Yeah, so it's fine to do that. So the other thing, and I've been suggesting this, so now I actually want to even more strongly suggest it, is that before you attempt a lab, or while you're doing, let me back up, while you're doing the lab test, if you have done this, I think your life will be easier. And what I did here is I downloaded the instructions. And so here's my suggestion is, as you're being trained on Excel, if you read through here and try to figure out where you think you know how to do things and where you don't, then you can even, this will help you be better organized and better prepared to do well here, right? So you could read through here and figure out, oh yeah, how do I display percentage signs, right? How do I calculate total fees? So, and the other thing you could actually even do is say which number in the My IT Lab that was trained on, so that you could come back and reference it, right? So again, this is only a suggestion, is that as you're doing the My IT Lab stuff, you take a look at that, okay? Have that in front of you so that you will reference it and hopefully be a little more successful. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, so that's that for that. So networking. So our topic for today is networking. And I want to start with kind of, you know, what networking is. And networking is such a huge term, but there's social networking, right? There's social networking, there's professional networking, and then there's all the technology stuff. And there's other networking I probably even haven't mentioned, right? These days, it's really easy to have networks of people, right? I mean, imagine all the people that are on your social networks, like Facebook people. Yeah? How many on Facebook in here? How many on Twitter? Yeah? How many on Snapchat? Yeah? Snapchat is really popular, right? So think about all those networks, right? So what's cool for me right now is that I have not just my network here at Fresno City of instructors, I have a whole network of students that have taken my class, and I have a whole other network across the country. And one of the cool things, as I mentioned last week, is I get to go to Google once in a while to do some fun stuff and network up there. So I wanted to show you one of my more fun activities that I get asked to do when I'm at Google. And let me preface this by saying, my thing about networking is it's not just who you know, it's how you behave. It's how you interact with the people that you do know. And I think that's really, really important. Having said that, I'm kind of the person that when we're at these events I was at last week, that I get asked to do this kind of stuff. So I can't turn on the music because the song playing is Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. So why can I, by the way, notice who's coming through. That's me leading the Congo line, right? So That's one of the things. I'm kind of the queen of dance because it's just, and it's really fun to see how many people get up and dance with me, you know, and I do the Congo line and it gets bigger and look, see, people are adding on, they're just going crazy. So, but that's kind of my, you know, networking thing is that I'm known as kind of the energetic one in the crowd and I'm kind of the oldest one. So it's kind of a nice thing to be, right? So again, the networks are really important. And I say this too, kind of referencing the movie coming up. Why did I mute it? Why did I mute Taylor Swift here? Copyright. Because this video is going to go out to YouTube, right? And because of that, I would get flagged for copyright violation. Do you know this? So the movies you all are working on, you need to keep that in mind. That's why I told you try to find the royalty-free audio stuff. Don't go for the commercial stuff. There are, here we go again, right? We're coming back around. So, you know, try to find that stuff. So notice it's getting longer. The line's getting longer and longer as we go, right? We had a good time. As you can see, it was really, really, really fun. So that's my point about talking about, you know, networking and really the importance of, you know, having good networks. I think it really has helped me. Here's the thing, my last 5 jobs, somebody I knew helped get me in the interview, but I had to do well in the interview, right? It's who you know and how well you do in that environment. But let's talk about computer networks. So in your notes, let's talk about how important these computer networks are to you, right? So for a moment, think about your daily activity for computing, right? Whether that be on a mobile device or on a desktop. How much of an impact does the being connected make in what you do? Is it a big impact? Yeah? So for a moment, take every one of those devices offline. How much could you do? Minimum. Okay, so part of this week's exercise is I actually want you to figure that out. So I did it here. So by the way, I'm doing a new thing now, showing you another thing, and you've already seen it if you've done late work, but Sheets. So put that in your notes, sheets.google.com. So here's what I want you to do, right? And I've already done it over here, but I'm just showing you. You do a new sheet. And by the way, this is going to go in your classwork, so what folder should that go in? Shared with Rio, right? So I've already done it here, but I just wanted to show you that. So here's what I'm going to have you do, right? So I want you to think about how important is, and I said the internet, but it's connectivity in general. But if I'm online, I need 99% of the time, this is true for me, I need to be online to get anything done. 99% of the time. Now, in this case, I also went down here and I started thinking about, and I want you to do the same, right? Kind of what are some of the things that you do that need to be online? Of course, for me, emailing, go back and forth, grading, lecturing, prep, learning. I mean, everything. So the importance of these networks are huge, right? Anybody give me the number they think it might be for them? Like, what do you think it is for you? 90? Yeah? So in your case, right, you'll set up this same sheet and you'll do 90%. So, and then this would be 10%. Right? Oh, make sure you don't do 2%, that won't work. So then what you do is you select this, and I've already done it. So you select that and you just insert, see where it says chart. Now, what kind of chart did I put there? Yeah, doesn't pie chart make sense when you're thinking about a total of 100%? It's really the only chart that makes sense in that case. And that's part of what you'll learn. So I want you to do a pie chart. You can kind of play with the colors if you want. I did a little bit here. So I want you to do that. So that'll be the one thing. Now, thinking about how you'd submit it, because we'll come back to some of this other stuff in a minute, but how would you submit this file to me in Classwork? Yeah, you could just do this, assuming you've put it in the right location, right? And I'm actually going to pull up a doc. So I would say, how important. Now, would I do that? Would that be probably the correct way to do a link? First of all, it's not linked, right? How do you know it's linked? It's when it's here. But is that the correct way to probably, or the most professional way to do a link? How would it be? What would it look like? What would a professional link look like right there? I'm going to do undo, because this, by the way, I'm telling you this because this is how I want links from now on. Okay, so FYI. So here's how you'd do it. You'd select the text, and then you would hit the link. and then you would paste that in and you would hit apply, right? So from now on, when I see your links, I want you to do that. So what you see me kind of here at week 10 doing is kind of tightening up some of the things, because it's just good to know how to do some of this stuff, right? So again, you'll have a week 10 sheet, which will come back to how we do some of this other stuff in a minute, but you will put it in your classwork. Okay? Make sense? And again, I just want you to kind of think about this. Really, it's just kind of a, for you personally, how much of the day do you depend on networks? And for me, it's huge. It's really big. Which brings us to our second topic of the day. So, and really the one we're going to spend the most time on. So here's what I want you to do. We just finished chapter 7, right? Chapter 7 was all about networks, and hopefully you were introduced to some new concepts or concepts and terms you already knew. But I'm going to tell you, and I kind of previewed this for you all on Tuesday, everything about your home network, you'll find in the larger networks that are out there. So understanding your own home network has a lot of benefits, because it helps you drill down into some of these concepts. So what I'm going to have you do, and I'm going to show you how to do this today, is I'm going to show you how to map your home network, okay? And this is a really good exercise. Honestly, I actually used to have this being a little smaller exercise where you only had to find your IP addresses. Let me stop right there. Who knows what an IP address is? You know, have you seen it? Yeah? So it's the number that uniquely identifies your network and your stations. Knowing those IPs, knowing, you know, where they're at and how to find them was good. So we'll do that, and we'll also do some internet speed, right? Because 99.9% of the time, the reason people have a home network, why? Why do you think? Did they wake up one day and go, I'm going to go get a home network? Why do they have one? To share the pipe, to share the internet that they have, okay? So what you're going to do, what the rest of this is going to be really showing you how to do the hands-on part of week 10, okay? So I'm going to introduce you another product from Google. So this product is called drawings.google.com. Drawings.google.com. And it's wonderful because it allows you to do, you know, for the most part, pretty simple but very useful drawings, okay? So I'm going to leave this open, but I'm also going to show you mine, right? So here's my home network, and this is going to be something along the lines of what you're going to do, okay? So let's start over here, right? So this first thing is a cloud called Comcast. What do we really call this? I mean, this is the provider, but what's the general term here? Your ISP, whoever supplies your internet to your home, right? So when you do this, you'll first identify, how many of you already know who that is? How many of you know who it is? Yeah, how many of you have Comcast? Oh, good. So this will be good because most of you will get some of the information you need. Everybody else, AT&T? Yeah? Who else? Anybody else in that list? Anybody, any other providers that you know of? HomeNet? I haven't heard of that one. Okay, so that's the provider you have. So, but actually, in a way, it's kind of sad. We only really have 2 major providers, right? Which is not good. We actually need competition in this area. So here's what I want you to I want to show you first is how to do this step. So over at my new drawing, I'd go over here and I would do Insert, Shape, and then under Shapes, I get all these drop downs, and then right here is the cloud. Okay. So once I click on cloud, then I can come over here and I can draw the cloud. And then, so again, what will go inside is your provider, whoever that is. Make sense? Okay. So that's the first thing, is understanding who is your provider. The next thing is understanding what is the IP address associated, or what we call your public-facing IP, because there's 2 kinds of IPs for 99% of the networks, and it's a public-facing IP and a private IP. Okay, and we'll talk about how to find them, right? So in this case, I'll show you what you'll end up creating, right? So I put this, and this is, by the way, just text, which I'll show you in a minute how to do. And when I click on it, right, it takes me to the item showing the IP address. Now I'm going to show you how to find this, right? But this is how your map will look. This is how your drawing will look. Are you with me? So now let me show you how to get that, right? So now let me show you how to do that so you can do it yourself. And it's really, and actually I've already shown you. Anybody remember? It's, I think I did. It's called what is, and I'm just at the prompt. It's going to search Google, what is my IP, right? And then when I come in here, the IP address is there. So you take a print screen of that, right? So this, now by the way, this number right here, 209.129.24147, represents to the internet everyone that comes from city. This is why we call it a public facing IP. Okay? So to find your IP, what do? You go to Google, you say, what's my IP? Now this is your public facing IP address. And then what you'll do is you'll take your print screen, and let me just show you over here what this looks like, right? So I'm going to do text. And again, I'm just showing you this part so you have an idea when you actually have to go do this. Let me do this. Let me increase it just a little bit so you can see this. So then I would do text, because it's a text box right there. I would draw it. Right? I won't have the exact one, but 192, whatever. And by the way, these actually are 3 digits, octaves we call them. And it's not the exact one, but it's okay. So once you do that, then you select the text, and then you do a hyperlink, right? Now what am I going to hyperlink it to? I'm hyperlinking it to a print screen, right? So let me show you that, because I have a couple of print screens already. So in this case, here's the one I had. How do I get the link? How do I get the URL here to link it? I do the pop out, right? I copy that, Control C it, come back to my drawing, and then I bring up my link, and then I just paste it in, and that does it, right? So that's what it will look like. You with me? Right? So you want to find your public facing IP address for your home network. And really that's good to know for a lot of different reasons, but we'll come back to that in a second. Okay, let me go to here. All right, so now the next thing you want to know is everyone has what we call a modem, a cable modem, or a DSL modem, right? So what I want you to do, and there's 2 ways you can do this. You can either take a picture of your actual device, right, and put it here, or I did it maybe the more lazy way, is I did it this way. I just went to images.google.com and went to and found my product name. In my case, mine is a surfboard. And mine is a DOCSIS 3. Now, DOCSIS 3 is a type of modem for all of you on Comcast. It is worth the investment just to upgrade your cable modem. You'll get faster speeds just by doing that upgrade. Here's the other thing. Some people, when they get Comcast, any of you use their product? They give you a modem? Any of you do that? By the way, over time, it may be more cost efficient to buy your own, because they keep charging you every month after month after month a rental fee. So I stopped renting years ago, and I just buy my own device. That way I can buy what I want. Okay? So just FYI. So what I do is I go to images.google.com. I'm going to search I'm going to find my item. Okay? And this is important. I'm going to do view image, right? I'm going to right click, I'm going to copy image, and I'm going to come over to here, and I'm going to paste it. See that? So what I'm going to do is, that's way too big, right? So first thing I'm going to do, actually the first thing I'm going to do is something, and you might want to do this, is what's called crop it. So I'm going to crop out some of that white space. So I'm going to bring it in a little bit to make this kind of look a little, let me do undo there. And by the way, Control Z, undo there, is really helpful. And then when I get it the way I want it, I hit crop again. That crops it. And then these are called hangers. I'm going to click and drag to make this a little smaller, and then it's there. Okay? So you want to find out what manufacturer is your cable modem, right? So here's the other thing. Let's go back here. Let's go back to mine so you can see it, right? So the other thing I want you to know is, what kind of physical connection do you have between Comcast, if it's your provider, or AT&T or Home Life or whatever you have, and your cable modem? And I keep saying cable modem, but it's really just a modem, okay? So for Comcast folks, that's a coax cable, right? Have you ever seen those big, for those of you who have your internet your TV coming in across the same signal as your internet? And the reason that coax cable is so good is that it's shielded. It's shielded from interference, and if you've ever opened one up, you'll see a shield on the outside of it. Okay? So if you have AT&T, then your answer probably here is an unshielded twisted pair, which we'll talk about in a minute. Okay? So you need to identify what? You need to identify your physical connection between your provider and your cable modem. Are you good? So you may have to just go look, right? Actually, that's the best way to do it. Just go look and find out what they are. So now some of you also could have a situation here where your cable modem and your router, which is the next device right here I'm going to talk about, could be one and the same. Anybody have that situation that they know of where you have one device that is both? Anton, do you have that? Yeah, so for you, you wouldn't have two devices here. You'd just have one. And I used to have that. Honestly, this device right here also is a router, but I stopped using it as a router because it wasn't fast enough for what I needed. And I'll talk about why in a second, right? So again, your map's going to look different than mine because you're going to map your home network, right? You good with that? Okay. So here's what you can see here is that I have an unshielded twisted pair cable that connects my router, my cable modem to my router. Right? And then I have another connection here because the next thing I want to have you show you how to do is I want you to do an internet speed for the two kinds of connections that you probably have at home, which is what? And it shows it right here. Wired and wireless. Okay? By the way, you can see the numbers here, but do you already know which is faster for most people? Yeah, why is wired faster? Because it doesn't have to do with all the wireless interference that you're going to get. Wireless, by its nature, is going to get interference. Okay? So how do you do, and we've already learned this, right? How to do an internet speed test. Pretty simple, right? You go to internet speed test. No, sorry, I should have done internet speed test the whole thing. Right? Now, I'm going to end up having you do this also on a mobile device, so you're probably going to get the app, which is the way I did it for the other second part. So you come here. Right? You begin test, and it will be interesting to see what the speed is today on campus, right? Because this is also affected on the time of day you do it, the amount of people that in your house that are on it. So this speed can be affected. But for sure, we'll come back to this in a minute, right? And you can see on my example, right? Look at my wired speeds, 147 megabits per second. That's pretty fast, right? It's a nice experience. So again, I clicked and I linked that to, right, the actual speed test, the print screen of it. Are you with me so far? I'm trying to see who's with me. So what did I do? When I did the speed test, I didn't show you all the steps, but I did the speed test and then I took a print screen. So here on campus today, 269, let's say 70 megabits per second, right? That's actually fairly low right now. Normally it's around 450, right? But I tell you, we would all love to have that kind of speed at home, okay? We would love to have that kind of speed at home. But coming back to here, look at the difference between my Wi-Fi speed and my wired speed. Significant difference? Yeah, right? So check this out. You're paying for, and this is part of why I want you to do this exercise. Many of us are paying for that much of a pipe. We're paying for 147 megabits per second. But for most of us, because most of us are wireless, are only getting around 60. Now, actually, this is not true. Most of you will find you won't get 60. Because before, and I'm not plugging a product, but before I bought this product this last year, guess what my Wi-Fi speeds were? 20 megabits per second. So even though right here in this example, it looks like a lot less, it's so much better than it was before. Because I was getting these kinds of speeds on wired, but wireless was disgustingly. Now, 20 megabits per second for some folks is really still pretty fast, right? And do you know what qualifies as broadband? Yeah, actually 10 megabits per second. So if you're not getting 10 megabits per second, you're not qualified really as the category of broadband. So here's what we're talking about, right? This is called the bandwidth. How much of a band, how much traffic, or how much of a pipe you get from your ISP, right? And there's the other thing is for those of you AT&T, show your hands again, right? AT&T, you also buy you also can buy a speed. So you want to make sure you're getting that speed, and this is one way to know that. Okay? So coming back here, so far, you good with that? So you're going to do 2 speed tests. You're going to do one that's wired, so you just have to find a cable, right? Find a unshielded twisted pair of basically an Ethernet cable that you connect in directly into your router, do a speed test over here, and then also do another speed test with just Wi-Fi. And it's best if you can actually hang out in the same close area to get a good test. Because what happens the farther away you move from your router in your house? What happens? So let's say I was in the same room in this example as my router doing this test for Wi-Fi. What happens is I get progressively farther. Weaker connection, right? So that's the other thing I did, and I didn't put it in here, is I actually did to see how far my Wi-Fi extended out. Prior to, when I did this last year, before I bought this device, again, I'm not plugging it. There's other devices you can get to do something like this. I could only get to like my front gate. Yesterday I did this. Guess how far I got away and still got my signal? 4 houses. I got 4 houses away and had my signal. Now that's crazy. I didn't realize it was that good. Now here's the other side of that, is you got to make sure, right? In this case, you have what? You have your Wi-Fi secured. Okay? So how do you know if something's secured? How do you know if Wi-Fi is secured? How can you easily tell? Yeah, so let me just, if showing it here, right, I'm on my Mac, but it doesn't matter. Anytime you see that little lock right there, that means you have to have some kind of authorization, some kind of passcode to get in. So many people do this. Many people, when they see open Wi-Fi, no lock, they're like, oh, Wi-Fi. That should not be your response. Your response should be, oh, open Wi-Fi, right? Why? Because once you're connected to a network through Wi-Fi, you're what we call peer-to-peer. That means they can connect with you, get what's on your system if you're not totally locked down, right? So it's just not a good idea. I know many of us may be like libertarian, we want to share everything. Anybody have open Wi-Fi at their house? Good. Don't do it. Now here's the other thing, right? Consider for me how far out my signal goes. Let's say it was unlocked. What could somebody do? What we call war driving. And this is where they drive around and they look for open Wi-Fi and they sit outside and they do stuff on your connection. Now what's the problem with that? Whatever they do, unfortunately for a moment, let's assume bad activity, right? Let's say it's pornography and not okay porn. Well, there's no okay pornography. Sorry, there's none, but that's just a personal opinion, okay? But whatever it is, let's say it's illegal. Who gets charged if it does get flagged? So the answer is whoever's name is on the bill gets charged, right? So you want to know, you want to just think about that before you open up whoever it is, whether it's you, whether it's your parents, whoever it is. I just want you to know that, okay? So coming back to here, the other thing I did is I found out my internal IP. So I want to show you that as well, right? So on this one device, I want you to also do the wired and the wireless speeds. I want you to find out what we call the private or internal IP is, okay? So let's just see this, right? So I showed you how to find the public one, right? What was it? What's my IP to Google? Right? Now to find the private one, it's not hard, but it's a little more involved. So let me show you first on the Mac. And it's fairly easy. I can actually go into my wireless. I can go into my open network preferences, right? And I can, once it comes up here, takes it a second, I can click on my Wi-Fi and it will tell me, actually let's do this one just for kicks. So this one tells me right here, that's my IP address, okay? And also something called your router, router we've been talking about, it has a number too, and I want you to find both of those numbers, right? So this one print screen can work to answer both of these questions. So let me show you real quick on Windows, because I have Windows running as well, because everyone will ask me, right? Come on. Come on, Windows, you can do it. Oh, this will be fun. Let's switch. Oh, the demo gods. Come on, there we go. Come on. You can do it. Oh, there we go. Whew, I was worried there for a minute. Okay, so this is true for Windows 7, Windows 10. You just find the little icon that represents your network, and you can double click. And this takes a few more steps, so you might want to write them down so when you go to do it. So you double click on your Wi-Fi, then you go into, and on Windows 7 it's called Open Network and Sharing. On Windows 10 it's called Networking Settings. And then when you're in here, you just go into Change Adapter Options. Okay? So now, this is this, oh sorry, one more step. Then you click on the adapter. And then you get this screen. So this is the screen that will give us all that information. Let me do it one more time, okay? So what did I click on first? What was it? Yeah, so go into network. So in the bottom, right, on all Windows, you have an icon in the bottom. I'm going to double click, and then I'm going to go into network settings, and then I'm going to go into adapter settings. And then I'm going to click on, you'll have an option here. I'm running virtual so I don't get the Wi-Fi option, but you'll have it on yours. You double click, and now we're at the screen. At least we can find out the information. There's only one more step, and it's called details. Okay? So let me show you this. So in this case, the IP address here, right, is 10.0.2.15, right? And then it's not called my router on the Windows side, it's called the default gateway, but it's the same thing. Right? Okay, so you got it? If not, Google it, right? How to find my default gateway on the operating system that you're on. Anybody want me to do it again? I don't mind. You good? Hopefully you took a few notes on it. Okay, so back to here. So that gave me my IP address here for my private IP. And then I gave a link because I took a print screen of that, and then I showed, right? Here is that print screen. Okay? All right. Let me close a few windows because my computer's just going to start dragging in a minute. All right. So we did the speed test, we did the IP address, and the reason I put this device out in here was that it's both connected to the Wi-Fi and to the wired because of the way I did the test. So this router, its main purpose is actually to broadcast your Wi-Fi signal, right? That's what it's for. That's why I was talking about knowing how far out that Wi-Fi signal goes, right? And why it's good to secure. So the other thing I want you to do is just identify some of the things connected to your Wi-Fi network, right? For me, this is just a sample. I have more than this, but I was almost ashamed to put them all on here. But I have a Nexus 9, and I just went and, again, you can either take pictures of the physical products, or you can just go find images for them. I have a Chrome box, I have an Android TV that are connected, okay? All right, so far so good. The only thing I didn't show you, and let me just show you right now, is how to do those lines. It's actually pretty simple. So over here on the drawing, there's this line right here. See that? Line. And then you can, and notice how when you do that line, you get these little purple hangers. So what I could do here is I could just click and drag, and if I connect it into that one, let's see if this worked. This worked yesterday. Yeah, check out what happens. See what it does is it pins it so that it then changes. Because the thing is, when you lay this thing out and you actually do it for yourself, you'll probably end up moving things around. And if you do those lines that way, it'll make it a little easier when you move things around. And it's just good to know. You may do it again? Anybody want me to do it again? Yeah, I'm going to do undo, 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 undo. Okay, so I clicked here, and as soon as I clicked the line, and I put my mouse, then the purple hangers came up. I clicked on one of the hangers in this case, and then I went over here and I connected it to that device I wanted it to. Okay? So it's just another thing to know how to do that kind of drawing activity. All right? So let's go back to mine. All right, so I've shown you here's my map, right? Here's my map so far. The other network that you want to think about is your cell phone network, right? Because that's the other network almost everyone has is your network. So if you're at home, which network do you probably want to connect to? Anybody have a preference? If you're at home on your mobile device, would you connect to your Wi-Fi or you connect to your cellular phone? How come Wi-Fi? Right. If you have a device, if you have a program that has data limits, you definitely want to be on the Wi-Fi, right? And it's much faster generally. Now this can vary based on who you use and your location. And this is why it is good to do a speed test, as you saw I did here, with my mobile devices, right? So I did a speed test. I had to load the app. And there's all kinds out there. I just loaded this one. But this was a little surprising to me. So check this out. This wasn't that my cellular, so when my phone connects to T-Mobile, I get 34 megabits per second. But when my phone connects to my Wi-Fi, I get 140 megabits per second. That shocked me. Because look at this. Look at how it compares to my desktop, my MacBook Pro. Why is my phone so much faster on my Wi-Fi than my MacBook Pro? Any ideas at all? Are you surprised by that number being that much faster? It'll be interesting to see your results here, right? It took me a few minutes to figure out why, because I'm like, this is got a bigger processor generally than my mobile phone. And here's the answer to why, is that this router right here has what we call multiple bands. So typically your Wi-Fi runs over what's called 2.4 hertz, and it's a signal range, right? And everything in my house runs probably over the 2.4, but my phone actually will run over the 5. So what that means is my phone is kind of on a network all by itself. It doesn't have to compete with anybody else because of what kind of hardware is in the phone itself, right? So that's just interesting to know for me. I had no idea it was that much faster. And for me, I have unlimited data, but I still typically do Wi-Fi when I'm at home. It's just faster. Although, what's the downside of doing Wi-Fi on your phone? Sucks up your battery faster. Have you ever noticed how much faster your batteries get sucked up, right? When you're using Wi-Fi, they're getting better at this, but it's not. All right, so this is the map you need to do. I want you to do, find your public-facing IPs, your private-facing IPs, do speed tests for both your wired, your wireless, your Wi-Fi on your mobile devices, and your cellular. The last thing I want you to do is do a formula to figure out the percentage of difference, right? So in this case, my home Wi-Fi is 60% slower. My Wi-Fi is 60% slower than my wired on my laptop. But on my cellular speed, it's 75% slower than my home Wi-Fi on my phone, right? My cellular speed. So how did I figure that out? So I'm going to go back to the sheet that I showed you before here. And this is how I did it. I set up a little table. I have my laptop, I have my speed, and then I just put in the speed that I used here, or that I got. So then my wireless speed was here, and then I just did a formula, right? Let's just zoom out to show you what that formula is, right? So it's your first number minus your second number divided by your first number. Uh-oh, I lost internet. Okay, so you put that in your notes just so you'll have it. So that's how you figure out a percentage decrease. Right? So this minus that divided by that is the answer. I gotta run my IVGA again. I'm not sure why it dropped, but it did. Okay, so maybe do that one more time. We're almost there. IVGA. There we go. I gotta figure out why it. Be interesting to figure out why it drops. It has something to do with the network, I'm pretty sure. If oh, you know what? I bet I need to turn that off. I'm surprised it didn't flag that before. By the way, also it shows me my IP address, right? One more time here. Try this. IVGA. There we go. Good. Now it's coming through. I just gotta flag it. Cool. There we go. Oh, I was on the wrong one too. That doesn't help. Okay. So So it makes sense what you have to do? So you got to do, so actually let's go ahead and submit, let's go ahead and do this. You've got your sheet that you've done that has how is it important? You've got your calculations, and then you have your map, right? That has these things on here. So down at the bottom, the one thing I did is I just wrote this out in written form to show the expression of decrease that I get on my Wi-Fi. Or the decrease on my cellular. So then I would copy that. I would go in here, and what would I do? You should know. Well, how would I do this? How would I link that map into my classwork? Good, I'd write some text, right? So I might say my home network, right? And then I'd select it. I would do a link, and then I'd paste it. And that's what it'll look like, right? So you will have a few notes in here that I told you today to include, and then you'll have those two things, okay? So what I hope is that by doing this, you get more familiar with your home networks, because it's really important to understand them because of what you're paying, and are you getting what you're paying, and to understand some fundamental things about them, okay? Does it sound like it'd be hard to put it together? No? Sound pretty easy? In last class, I actually had students come up and ask me, because is yours going to look like mine? No, right? Everyone's going to look a little differently. Your numbers are going to be different, right? And again, remember, you're only sharing this between you and me. So if you're still a little nervous about sharing those IP addresses, take those last 2 octaves off so you don't have them on there, right? Just give me so like if you were nervous, you could just do like 00 here, right? And 00 there. And the other thing I would say is if you run into issues trying to find this number right here, which is your default gateway, there's another thing you can do. Matter of fact, notice here. See how this is 192.168.86.1, right? Typically, if you find the private number like I showed you, it's just generally 1 to be your default gateway. All right, that's just generally how if you can't get it through your operating system, which I showed you today was fairly easy to do that. All right, and I showed you on both the Mac and the Windows side how to do it. All right, so here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking what I'll have you do. I'm gonna leave every due date as it is in Canvas, but I'm thinking I'll give you until after break to do this one. That way, if you want to play with it over break and kind of, really, and if you want to do that distance thing, right? Do that thing where you find out how far out your Wi-Fi stretches. It's good to know. Right? And the other thing I didn't show you today, but it's fairly easy to find out, is what kind of security do you have on your wireless? And, oh, here's the other thing. What's the SSID? What does that mean? Anybody know? It's very simple. It sounds more complicated. It's whatever you see in your list when you look at your Wi-Fi, those are the names of the networks, the SSIDs. Now, do you see mine? Why do you think the name of my network is ICU? That's right. If you're driving around and you see a network called ICU, would you try to get on it? No. If you're like, oh, ICU, maybe they're watching what I'm doing. Yeah. I've had people sit outside. I've seen people try to hack into my Wi-Fi. I've seen them do it, right? Because I also, by the way, the other thing about the On Hub, and that's the device that I bought here, and again, there are other devices out there. This device has been so much better because I'm getting so much more speed out of my Wi-Fi and distance, which is really great. So I've maximized the cost that I've gotten here. And the other thing I do is yearly I call Comcast up and I tell them I'm leaving. Why do you think I do that? Why do I call Comcast up and tell them I'm leaving? Yeah. If you have Comcast, call them up and tell them you're leaving. Be prepared to spend an hour because they'll put you on hold. There's horror stories about Comcast. By the way, do you know Comcast is not really Comcast anymore? They're Xfinity. Why do you think they came up with Xfinity? Because Comcast got such a bad name about people being so disgusted about customer service, right? That's part of the reason. So it's good to know who also your ISP is. So hopefully, again, the idea of doing this exercise is to kind of bring you more in touch and hopefully take some of those terms that you learned, because we didn't even talk about some of the other stuff about Wi-Fi standards and all that. So, but hopefully this will at least get you started and get you curious about that. Okay? Interesting at all? I don't know. Was it interesting at all? You're like, I don't know, I was asleep. All right, say goodbye to everyone. Talk to you later. Okay, cool. Let me find the mouse in the house. I can't find the mouse in the house. There it is.